What's up, everybody? It's Greg with Delta, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business with coaching on sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur. We bring on guest speakers. Today, I've got the honor and pleasure of welcoming a badass with me, Mr. Steve. Is it Hockman?
It is, yeah. Awesome.
Oh, yeah, I got it right. That's what I'm talking about.
Usually one out of every 10 people get it right. You're one of those. You're 1 in 10.
you got 9 coming that are going to fuck it up. So.
100%.
Nice, man. Nice. So I'm excited for this episode. This episode is going to be chock full with a lot of some deep, vulnerable shit. I can feel it already in my gut. But for those of you that don't know who Steve is somebody that his story is going to have you on the edge of your seats listening to all the crazy shit that he's been through and what he's come up and how he's able to come out on top. He went from growing up poor as fuck to co-founding Fit Body Boot Camp, the largest fitness boot camp franchise in the world. He remembered living in an old beat up car his senior year in high school. It was absolutely degrading, but everything changed when he turned into the fitness industry and he turned it upside down, did $100,000 a month in his first year. Before he knew it, he had 6-figure gyms that got thousands of people, undeniable results. He had trainers and gym owners coming to him for coaching on how to scale their business. He was on top of the world, but it all came crashing down when his inflated ego got in the way. It disrupted all that he was and forced him into hiding to work on himself for an entire decade. He sold all his gyms, shut down his coaching and all of his sites and everything. Now he's finally back after starting the largest privately owned fitness boot camp chain in Orange County, California, with a wild story to share. And here he's going to share it all with us. Steve.
Yeah, Greg, thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate it.
Man, let's hear it.
Man, I'm listening to this introduction. I'm like, who is this guy?
Like, who's about to speak, man? I'm excited.
Yeah,
so
brother.
Tell me, man. Fit Body Boot Camp to where you are now, man. That has to be a wild fucking ride.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was crazy. When I was about 5 years old, I knew something was sort of off, and I actually had Tourette syndrome as a kid, really, really bad. Mm-hmm. So just from the get-go, I was really just an outcast. Like I had 0.0 friends. I was picked last for everything. Like I wasn't even picked last. I was just left over. Like they didn't pick me, so I went on this team, all the way until 10th grade in high school. I went out for football, and I had a crazy idea that I wanted to be an All-American and get a scholarship, even though I've never played in my life. And everybody thought I was crazy. And, the kid that never got picked for sports. But then when I graduated high school, I was first team All-American. I signed with University of Miami and got a full scholarship. And, from there, the thing is that what I realized, bro, is that everything is really knowing who you are and what your purpose is. And I had a purpose temporarily to get that scholarship, but once I got it, I didn't really have a purpose. And so that's sort of the story of my life, of the ups and downs of who I am. Even with Fit Body Boot Camp, right? You asked me what happened with that? So when I started training people, bro, you got to understand, I was about 300 pounds after I got done playing at University of Miami. I didn't even get done playing. I dropped out. My dad was a really bad guy, said he was going to kill himself if he didn't get $20,000 for some check fraud that he was framed for. So I'm like this 19-year-old kid trying to get him money, thinking my hero, who I didn't know what a piece of shit he was going to kill himself, and it was going to be my fault. And it was like midterms. I just blew out my ACL. I took a bunch of caffeine pills to study, and I had this massive anxiety attack. And it sort of broke something in my brain for about 7 years, where I would have about 20 anxiety attacks a day for no reason. It would just kind of consume my life. And so when I finally just had enough, I couldn't breathe. I just felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. I finally dropped out of college, and I was just really obese, man. I was poor. I was homeless again. I was homeless, bro. And I remember I actually remember the moment it really changed. I was sleeping on the floor in this ghetto ass Fontana apartment that my dad, it wasn't even his apartment. He was just like bumming a couch off of someone. And so I was sleeping on the floor, and I was 300 pounds, just no job, no money, no direction. I was looking up. He was snoring, and an ash was about to fall on my head. You know, he fell asleep with a cigarette in his hand. And I heard some gunshots outside, and then I felt something on my chest, and it was a cockroach. And I was just like, fuck this shit. This isn't how my life is supposed to be. And I actually dedicated myself to fitness. It was the only time when I worked out super hard that I didn't have anxiety. It was the only time I felt normal, was just in that 2-hour workout. The rest of the day I felt like shit, but during those 2 hours I felt great. And so I got addicted to working out, everything from jujitsu, kickboxing, lifting weights, swimming, biking, hiking. And I really learned about nutrition. I had a friend. He was, we called him Fat Albert because obviously he was really fat. But when I linked back up with him, he was shredded. And he became a microbiologist chemist. And he actually taught me about nutrition and the glycemic index, stuff that nobody talks about. And I got super shredded really fast. People started to notice. They started asking me for help. And I went from being homeless to a year later having a 7-figure personal training gym. Then I started opening up fitness boot camps, like indoor fitness boot camps. At the time, they were all done in the park. So I did mine indoors, and I had everyone on an auto debit membership. See, back then, everyone did packages for personal training. I did auto debit for personal training. You sign up for a membership with me. So I made more money than everybody because I got paid more often than everybody else. And then I just did the same concept with boot camps, but I made them indoors. And I opened up six-figure boot camps in 6 months. So I opened up one a month.
Yeah.
That's how Bezos heard about me. I ended up partnering with him. He really wanted to have a boot camp franchise, and I was the only guy with six-figure indoor boot camps. No one else had indoor boot camps at the time. So I said, let's do it. So I remember being on stage. I think I sold my first 300 franchises like on stage. And that blew up really big. And at the same time, I started coaching people all over the world in business. And because I grew so fast, Greg, like my personal development and my purpose weren't solidified enough. And my ego started getting I started really believing the shit people were saying about me. Like I started thinking I was a little more important than I was. And I was in a horrible marriage at the time too. So I was like cheating on my wife like crazy. And I should have just left that marriage, but I didn't. I thought this is just what you do and this is how it goes. And it was some wild times. And I actually, I walked away. I sold my Half a Fit Body boot camp. I just didn't like the person I was. I walked away from $100,000 a month coaching business. And I didn't really just hide into obscurity. I opened up multiple privately owned fitness boot camps. I still ran a 7-figure business. And I didn't just like exactly run and hide.
The face of the plate, it do nothing.
I just fell off of in the public, and so I just started helping people locally. And it was only about 7, maybe 8 months ago that I just really, after working on myself for so long, I realized, can you still see me okay?
Yeah, I see fine.
Oh yeah, my picture popped out on my screen. But I realized that my purpose and the reason why I had so many ups and downs, my purpose, my mission is to really help and give the most value to the most people in the most ways. But the crazy thing is, the only way I could do that, if that's really my purpose, which it is to be the best version of myself in all those ways. And so really everything I do is measured against, can I give value with this? And if the answer is yes, I do it. If it's no, I don't do it. And having that purpose, I wish someone just gave me this purpose 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago. I'm getting old. I'm 49 right now. So I wish I had this knowledge, back in the beginning, because it makes life so simple when you really know who you are. And the thing is, like, if you ask 100 people, what's your purpose? What's your mission? Why are you here? Probably 99 out of 100 people don't know. They're going to have to think about it because that's not who they are. That's not their life. And when you have a purpose-driven life, everything just becomes clear.
Dude, it's so true. It's absolutely true. And that's a powerful story, man. I appreciate you sharing it with everybody. Dude, I got all kinds of questions. I want to dig into how you learned about all that you learned about nutrition from old Fat Albert.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued about this.
Yeah, this is interesting. I actually have a book coming out in about 3 or 4 months It's written, it's done. It's just going through the editing process.
Mm.
About 25 years ago, my friend explained to me this thing called the glycemic index. And everybody talks about calories in, calories out, but it doesn't. This is why my book's so different. It doesn't work that way. If you don't understand the glycemic index of foods, you're only going to be left with cutting your calories so low that you're starving, that you lose fat and muscle. Then eventually you have to bulk up and gain fat and gain muscle, then go down. You can never just be lean year round and gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. And that's how I've been for the last 20 years. So my nutrition, I have 3 rules. Rule number 1, stay below 25 in the glycemic index. The glycemic index is a rating scale that describes how fast your blood sugar rises when you eat certain foods or certain ingredients. So like, for instance, a piece of broccoli is like a 10. So your blood sugar goes up very slow, nothing happens. Mm-hmm. If you eat, let's say you eat like a banana even, it's about a 50 in the glycemic index. Your blood sugar, your glucose, the sugar in your blood rises. So your body produces insulin to clear that glucose out. Well, insulin, it's the most powerful absorption hormone in your body, and it absorbs that glucose, that sugar, into your cells. It's not being used, so now it gets stored as fat. And if you're having fat with that meal, that also gets stored in your cells, and it's already in the fat molecules. So when you stop having that insulin response, you just lose all your body fat and you could eat way more calories. And I don't know why nobody talks about this. It's like people don't even know what the glycemic index is. If they taught it in school, they'd cure, 95% of people with diabetes, it's type 2. It's curable and preventable. Every single person I've worked with, I've either cured or prevented them from being pre-diabetic into full-blown diabetic. It should be just taught in health class. The glycemic index, it would get rid of all the bullshit on all the marketing of all the foods, all the stuff that they say about on the front, this net carb bullshit and all this stuff. If they just have the glycemic index, you would know if it's going to make you fat or not. Dude, it's kind of crazy. So I was at the store the other day. We were Thanksgiving shopping, and I saw this like vegan cheese, which I wouldn't eat anyways, but I was just so curious. I'm like, what's in it? And so I turned it around, and it was like, the first ingredient was modified food starch. So on the glycemic index, table sugar, which everybody knows is horrible. Like if I said, what will happen if you eat table sugar? Everyone will be like, I'm going to get fat. Well, the glycemic index of modified food starch, remember table sugar is 64, modified food starch is about a 90. It's worse than sugar. The next ingredient was cornstarch, which is about an 87. The next ingredient was maltodextrin, which is 115. So you're eating this vegan cheese and you're definitely, it's just like eating candy, but nobody knows this. Like nobody's talking about it. And that's why my book is going to be so different. That's coming out.
Dude, that's crazy. So is it easy to find the glycemic index for any foods?
It's so you literally just Google what is the glycemic index of any food, any ingredient. It's really, really easy.
So you just stay under 25 with everything that you eat.
Well, that's rule number 1, right? Because you need carbs. So I define carbs. My definition of a carb is anything over 25 in the glycemic index. Because technically broccoli is carbs, but you don't think of it that way. Like who cares?
It's because it's mostly fiber.
Yeah, so I don't even think of it that way. So I stay under 25 in the glycemic index. Then rule number 2, I don't combine carbs and fat in the same meal. And the reason why is because you get that insulin. Insulin absorbs everything into your bloodstream, into your cells. Yeah. So you're really absorbing fat. A lot of people think, they go, well, I thought you're supposed to have fat because it slows down the absorption rate. The problem is it doesn't slow it down enough. It's kind of a myth. It's like getting hit by a car at 80 miles per hour versus 60. It's like, who cares? You're dead either way. Yeah. And then rule number 3 is strategic carb timing. So 1 time per day, strategically after my workout, I do have high glycemic carbohydrates. So that's when I eat all my fruit. I have potatoes. I have fat-free Greek yogurt mixed with whey protein. And strategically, that's the best time to have carbs. Those are my 3 rules. And then I use a mindset method. So see, you could give someone any knowledge. Like with my coaching clients, I go, all right, do you eat food you know you're not supposed to eat right now? And they're like, yes. I go, so just me explaining the 3 rules, you're still you, and you're still going to fuck it up because you don't have the mindset yet. So I link a higher purpose, just like my purpose is to serve others. I link a higher purpose to their nutrition. So it's easiest for me to work with parents. I explain like, I was working with a parent the other day, and she said that she was telling her son, he got mad at his boss at work, and don't get emotional and have an outburst because it could hurt your potential of your future. You know, it's not beneficial for your future. And I'm like, but aren't you eating food you're not supposed to eat because you're emotionally eating? And isn't that kind of being a hypocritical parent? Are you really able to deliver the message to your son of controlling your emotions and have him feel the impact of someone who really lives it versus you who's just faking it and not living it? And so when parents make the connection of their nutrition and their behavior with nutrition with them being an effective parent, then it gives them that higher purpose to actually implement the knowledge that they just learned.
That's so critical. That's so critical. So after your workout, you'll have that's when you have your fruits. That's when you have your higher glycemic index foods.
Greg, you want to hear something crazy? So this is like one more example. This is why my book is going to change. I'm not trying to just like promote the shit out of my book.
No, promote the shit out of it. I'm going to fucking buy it myself. I'm already intrigued.
It's just that this is going to change the world. I'm going to give you like a perfect example, right? And this is why my book solves all this stuff. Someone will walk into Starbucks and they're actually trying. They're trying to do better. So they're like, I usually do sugar in my coffee. I'm going to have the 0 sugar vanilla sweetener because I'm behaving myself. If you look at the ingredients, because the ingredients don't lie and the glycemic index doesn't lie. The first ingredient in their sugar-free vanilla sweetener is maltodextrin. Maltodextrin is an artificial sweetener, but it has a glycemic index. Remember, I said table sugar is 64. Maltodextrin is 115.
Yeah.
So you just have hordes of people trying to do better, but they're eating foods that are way worse. And it's because they don't even know the glycemic index exists. They don't know. Everyone has a smartphone. You just ask it, and it'll be your guide for everything. So this literally will give everyone the power to really control their body fat percentage and their health without being fooled by the fucking greedy ass food industry that really doesn't care. And they're so good at fooling people.
Dude, this is awesome. So you mentioned when you don't mix energy sources, carbs and fats in the same meal, right?
Correct.
So
right,
if you're having fat, you don't have carbs.
But don't forget, except for my strategic carb timing meal, everything's under 25 of the glycemic index. I don't consider that a carb, so I eat fat all day long. I just don't eat it when I'm having high glycemic carbohydrates.
Okay, that makes sense. So do you consider, like, if you have carbs during that time, if you have meat during that time, like let's say you had chicken, would you consider the fat in chicken, or are you like, no, I'm talking more like higher fats?
If it's more than a few grams of fat, I just don't have it in that one meal. You know, okay. I mean, really, I really prefer, like, my favorite meal, honestly, one of my favorite meals of the day is my strategic carb timing, fat-free Greek yogurt with vanilla whey protein and berries. And I put some beet powder in there as well. And then I have a few red potatoes on the side. I mean, honestly, it's one of my favorite meals. But a lot of my coaching clients, they'll do egg whites with like Primal Kitchen. It's like a really healthy ketchup that they use. And they'll put potatoes in there, and they get really creative with it. I'm pretty simple. But yeah, so if it's more than a few grams of fat, then I don't combine it.
Okay. Yeah, usually I do carbs. I just take, I'm a First Form guy. I take Ignition after my workout. I take Ignition, protein, and then I'll do a serving of oatmeal with egg whites. And that's my post-workout, like, boom, there we go. But then throughout the day, like, I used to be no carbs, but now I will eat like jasmine rice. That's like the only carb I'll eat.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, the glycemic index is on that.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you eat really clean too. And the problem is that the thing is, when you're getting insulin spikes and you're having glucose in your bloodstream and you're constantly storing that glucose and converting it as fat, you're forced to eat lower calories than you really need to. And when you go lower calories, it's just hard to gain as much muscle as you can if you were going higher calories. So, the thing is that you can get really lean without doing this. Like, I'm not saying this is the only way for sure to get lean, but if you're done with weighing your food, counting your calories, carrying a scale with you to restaurants, and then, eating foods that are working in the opposite direction that you're trying to go. So then the only thing left for you to do is lower your calories. And that's what's happening with people is they're constantly lowering their calories. And most people, they just are so miserable that eventually they go back to eating more, but now they have a slower metabolism, less muscle, and they still haven't learned anything. So this just solves all of it and it simplifies it in this way. And man, I have so many recipes. I'm posting a recipe today of this carb-free pizza that I made. It's just with, dude, the crust is just 2 cups of almond flour, 1 cup of fat-free Greek yogurt. Believe it or not, you mix it up, you roll it out as dough, you bake it, you make pizza with it. And it's like
I've done with almond flour and mozzarella cheese.
Oh, amazing.
And it literally comes out like a friggin' like dough. It comes out just like dough. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. So there's all these things out there that fall within the 3 rules that you could have. I always tell people I can match almost anything that you could think of to eat. I could give you the healthy version of it, and it'll taste 90% as good as the real thing. But it'll get you
some of them actually taste better.
I agree.
I've gotten used to it. You kind of get a taste for it when you do it so often that when you eat the real thing, you're like, wow, that's like way too sweet, or like it's almost off-putting a little bit, you know? I noticed that because I was on keto for a long time, man. I was on keto for a long time, and I did eat a shit ton when I was on keto, and I was pretty fucking lean. But when I added carbs and I started doing a high carb diet, low fat, I had to drop my calories quite a bit. But I didn't want to eat a lot because carbs were so filling to me. It was a little bit different. So I might go back to keto. I don't know. Talking to you about this, I'm like, shit, I never thought about the glycemic index.
Yeah, I always say just do it. Do what works for you, you know?
Yeah. I've always enjoyed keto because I could eat what I wanted. Like, because I like eating a lot of meats. I love fucking eggs. And like carbs, the only carbs that I really like that I love, I'm like craving every once in a while are potatoes, sweet potatoes, or rice. But like, it's not so bad that if I went without it, that I'm really missing out. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah. So in a sense, you're doing the 3 rules. And then if you add just like understanding the glycemic index so that you could look up ingredients, because like I work with a lot of keto people and they'll say, oh, I had keto this or keto that. I'm like, send me the ingredients. And I'm like, bro, these ingredients are all in the 80s. This isn't keto. Like you're not.
I don't eat those keto friendly.
Not you. Yeah. I'm just saying like people out there, they think they're doing keto because see the food industry there's no regulation on what claims they can make. Yes. So they could call anything keto and it's anything but keto, but there's no rules about that. So most people, they don't have the knowledge. So they'll just see the word keto and they'll be like, I could eat this, but it's not keto. It's like straight sugar and they just don't understand it.
Yeah. And a lot of times they'll do this sugar substitutes, like the allopurinol, stuff like that, like all those things that'll do the sweeteners. But those, if you have those in excess, it still will it'll raise your blood sugar. And that's something that I learned doing keto for a long time was like, hey, you can't just eat all these like fucking 0-calorie sweeteners and be like, oh, I'm good. It's not sugar. Bro, it's still going to have an effect on your blood sugar.
Yeah.
Pretty bad too.
And it's crazy too, because like there's a lot of stuff out there that like everyone's into oat milk right now. And so when you make oat milk, so what happens is when they add enzymes to break down the starch, it creates something called maltose. So maltose, the glycemic index is 110. And oat milk itself is about 70, which is higher than table sugar. So you could even Google the glycemic index of oat milk and you'll find it's 70. And it's because of the maltose that is created by the starch breaking down the enzymes breaking down the starch of the oats. But like, this is just, people are so used to just seeing what's trending. They don't understand that like with the 3 rules and the glycemic index, it cuts through all, it makes you like a super genius. You could just look up the ingredients or look up the glycemic index and you seem like you're the smartest person in the world, but it's the most simple thing to do. And you'll impress your friends, I guess. You know?
That's amazing, man. So you use this tactic of using the glycemic index of your exercise knowledge and exercise science that you had learned over the years to make a 6-figure a month business of helping people in this Fit Body Bootcamp style and indoors of actually helping them have these transformations.
Yeah. I mean,
in person.
Yeah. It's just the workouts and the nutrition. It's super simple. Yeah. I've been doing this for so long. It's funny too, because people have been asking me to write this book for a long time. And I don't know why I just haven't, you know, and then about 6 months ago, I just decided to write it. And I got a publisher and now it's done. And so now it's just editing, and I'm like, oh damn, I wrote a book. Shit, it wasn't even that hard.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. I know you're super proud and excited for it to come out. When is it set to come out next year?
There's not a set date. So I'm just hustling as hard as I can. And it seems like with the way the schedule has been going, that it should be about 3 or 4 months till it comes out.
Okay. Okay. So like by the end of first quarter-ish.
Yeah. February, March.
Dope. Dude, I want a copy.
Yeah.
Keep in touch, man. I want a copy. I'm buying a copy. Let me know. So you mentioned in your bio how you have you started your largest privately owned fitness boot camp, right? Or is this you're talking about Fit Body Boot Camp? We're talking about a second one that you've started recently.
Yeah. So
that you kind of like you
it's called OC Fit, and so I'm in Orange County, California, and I actually just recently sold all of my locations except one, but I had 6 privately owned locations, which was the biggest one in Orange County, California, a privately owned fitness non-franchise boot camp. Yeah.
So you still have one that's left.
I have the biggest one. Yeah, You kept
that. So what's next? Are you going to stay in this? Are you looking to expand into other areas in business? With your book coming out, what's next for Steve?
Yeah. So really, like, first and foremost is what's next for me is to just help. So because my mission, my goal, my purpose is to give as much value to as many people as possible, I have to get on as many platforms as I possibly can to make that happen. That's actually why I wrote the book, to be honest. Like the book itself is anyone who gets their hands on the book is going to benefit greatly. Like, and there's so much mindset in that book as well. But it's also a key that unlocks doors. It will be a bestseller. I guarantee you it'll be a bestseller. And having a bestseller book does open doors to big platforms, which gives me more eyeballs on me of people that I could help. So really my goal is to just keep growing my coaching program so I could continue to help people. I'll keep running, owning. I don't do a lot of the day-to-day stuff in my bootcamp company. I just kind of, run it and make sure everything's working and do the high-level strategic stuff. But I'll probably open some more locations. I'm looking for another one right now, but really just coaching and maybe I'll write another book. But I just want to keep expanding. I want to be able to help more people, and the only way to do that is to get on the biggest platforms you could get on. Or else, how are you going to do that? Right. So that's it. That's my sole mission right now.
Yeah. Podcasts, stages, etc. Yeah.
All of that. Yeah. And that's what I was doing about, 12 years ago when I blew up really fast and my ego blew up at the same time. I was doing all that same stuff. And it's funny. It's like, I got off. I just literally opened up started my Instagram like 8 months ago. And that's it. And not even 7 months ago. So it was April 10th. So it's like, I'm kind of like, I started over 100% in this, but it's going really, really fast. And with this book, it's going to accelerate, tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I'm proud of you, man. That's awesome. That's fantastic that you're doing that. And I will say when it comes to having moments of clarity in life where humbleness is forced upon you on of course almost like an ego death, right? Those can be very challenging times, and some people have those moments hit them and they choose to ignore it and they choose to act like everyone else is crazy and there's nothing wrong with them. And some people take a look at the mirror and say, man, I've been a fucking problem. This is not who I'm supposed to be.
Those are the exact words I really said out loud to myself.
I've had that moment. I've said those words too.
Yeah, exactly. And it just means, like guys like me and you are just driven to become better. I just always want to be a better version of myself. I was blessed with that drive to always improve. I'm hungry, man. I want to get better. I still want to get better. I feel like I have so much to learn, and so much to give and to teach. You can't give someone something you don't have. So if I'm not fit, how am I going to help someone become fit? If I'm not financially successful, how can I help someone with that? If I'm not a good parent, how can I help other parents out there? If I'm not a good spouse, how can I help other spouses, have a successful relationship? And so just for me, even the other day, I got in this like little argument with my wife, and it was like my ego was kind of hurt. I think she said something like she said I wasn't helping enough with our son. I have a 16-year-old, an 18-year-old, and then me and her have a 3-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I do a lot for my son. I feel like I'm doing all sorts of stuff all the time. But she said like she was just mad that day, and she said I wasn't really helping that much. And my ego kind of flared up, and we started getting in this argument. And in that moment, if it was just about me, I would try to win the argument. I'm pretty good at it. And I would definitely, although she's way smarter than me, I'm pretty good at like not giving up. But I realized in that very moment, I can't give this value to anybody. I can't give this value of winning this argument. The only value that I could hand to someone else is resolving this with love, compassion, subordinating my ego, and just taking one for the team. Like, hey, baby, I'm sorry. You know what? My ego is just getting upset. I'll help more. Tell me what I need to do better. Let's just like not even argue about this. And so, but I wouldn't do that if I didn't have this purpose. It just keeps me, as much as I could help other people, it helps me infinitely more, if not the same,
And it's such a simple concept, yet powerful and impactful to just stop and say, with everything you're doing, can I provide value through going down this path? Like, can I learn something from it and then provide value to others from what I learned or the experience that I'm creating in this moment in time?
It's funny. Like I used to have cheat meals, like maybe once a month, I would just like, quote unquote, earn it, where I'm like, all right, at the end of the month, we're having, all this crazy food. Mm. But even now, I can't even have cheat meals because, and by the way, I don't want to have them. I got so good at making things that are amazing that fall within the rules that I don't even really want it. But at this point, I can't give value with having a cheat meal, right? Like I could give value with saying, look, I'm leaner than you, but I'm not even having a cheat meal. And in fact, I'm having this other food that tastes amazing, but I'm not doing the cheat meal. So like, I could help someone even more by me leading by that example. So like everything I do, it's just funny. It's just everything. Even if I could get away with it, I don't do it because I won't be as effective as giving value if I do. But you're right. It's a simple thing, but it makes all the difference in the world.
It's so simple, yet it's very impactful. And I think if there's anything for those of you that are listening or watching the video version, if there's anything that you can take away from this, it's that simple thing right there. If you start doing that in your life every single day, I promise you, you'll find change. It will start to build, and it'll build this little bit of momentum of discipline of doing the right thing over time, and it will completely change your life within 60, 90, 120 days, especially if you do it for like a year. Every single thing you do, you stop and say, hey, can I provide value by going down this path?
Yeah. And another thing is like the thing that holds most people back is confidence. That's the biggest thing. Like if you were supremely confident, if a person is supremely confident, there's so many more things that they would do because they believe they can do it. Mm-hmm. And when they don't do the little things, so everybody has a conscience. Our conscience tells us what to do and what not to do, what to eat, what not to eat, to sleep in or to hit snooze or to get up, to work out or not work out. We do have that internal mechanism. And the thing is, everybody's conscience is like, and they've had that conversation where they're like, okay, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to start eating healthy. And then they don't. I'm going to get up early. And then they hit snooze. I'm going to work out. Not today. I'll start Monday. So when they don't do the little things, they're not confident that they could do the big things. And a lot of people don't connect the two. Mm-hmm. Like if you just are dedicated and disciplined for workout and nutrition, I mean, what other thing do you have where 5 times a day you can make a decision of purpose over pleasure? 5 times a day, right? Mm-hmm. And if you count working out, there's 6 times a day right there, 5 meals and a workout where you could keep your word to yourself and you could earn the trust with yourself that turns into confidence. And when you have that confidence, you see other things in your life starting to grow as well. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people just really don't ever reach their potential because they don't keep their word on the little things.
Absolutely. So powerful. I love that. Man, thank you so much, Steve, for coming on the podcast, man. This has been a great conversation. This really has. I've really enjoyed it. If anyone wants to connect with you and learn more from you, find out when your books, or follow you on Instagram, What's the best place to connect with you, Steve?
Yeah, it's stevehockman.driven on Instagram. That's the best way.
Mm.
Message me, follow my content. Whatever I can do to help, hit me up.
And that's Hockman, HOCHMAN, stevehockman.driven.
Mm-hmm.
The last question I ask all my guests is, Steve, you have the opportunity to sit with, learn from, break bread with, and just to have an experience with 3 individuals, anyone in history, alive or deceased. Who would they be and why?
That's a great question. Wow. I would say the first one would be Elon.
That's a good one. I love that one. I love what I hear.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that person, man. I don't know how he does so many things at the same time. And the way he thinks is I would just love to learn. Like, I would love to just see a day in the life, to be honest with you. You know, from building spaceships to building tunnels to making like super cool cars. Like, even if he just did one of those things to the level he's doing, it'd be so impressive. But he's doing all 3, so that's pretty awesome. Gosh, you know, it's funny. I've never even thought of this question. I've thought of that. I would like to meet Joe Rogan. I would like to meet Joe Rogan. I love his podcast. I really like his thought process on things. I love how he's not attached to his ideas, how he subordinates his ego, how he's open-minded, but also a strong person at the same time.
Yeah.
So I would say Elon, Joe, and man, who's the third? Geez. I would like to meet, you know, I would like to meet Leonidas from 300, but go back in the day. You know,
yeah, that's a good one.
Meet, or Marcus Aurelius, actually.
Marcus Aurelius is actually a really good one. I've been doing a lot more reading of Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism, and I'm fucking impressed with that dude.
I love how, you know, so long ago he had such just deep concepts. You know, what stands in the way becomes the way. Everything happens as it should. Just I'm fascinated by Marcus Aurelius. So those are the three that I would like to meet if I could.
Those are fantastic. Those are I really like Marcus Aurelius. Hey, if you guys haven't been reading, or if you like to read, which all of you should, motherfuckers, is go check out Marcus Aurelius. It's free. It's a book. You get it for free. Go look at the writings by Marcus Aurelius. It's fucking phenomenal. Okay. It's phenomenal. He really does, like, Stoicism's fantastic, especially a lot of it's very applicable to today, what's going on with men across the nation. But thank you so much for jumping on the podcast, Steve. I appreciate it. And if anyone's watching, you're listening, and you watched till now, then you obviously got value. So I ask you, do Steve and I a favor. Share this content with someone else that can learn from it, that can grow from it, that can maybe also change their life with it, just by applying some of the things that Steve talked about here. It takes you 30 to 60 seconds to rate, review, subscribe, and share, but it means the world to both Steve and I. This has been the Be the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time, deuces. We'll see.